Wow, that was shit, wasn't it? If you are new around here, please drop a like, please drop a subscribe. It does mean the world to me. Hey, I managed to do my intro. Um, if you are a returning Pommy Nozzer though, good day to you. It's great to have you here. So Carlton have just come off the back of a 39-point loss to North, and let's be honest, it was a bit shit, wasn't it? A lot to digest, so without any further ado, let's crack straight into it. What I find hard to believe about this side is we did the preview and we talked about that, nearly 40% of their ball movement moves along the corridor. I think what's even more alarming for me is we talked about how they work around the stoppages and how Teague has a tendency to play a man behind the ball. And we suggested that, you play a man around the ball this time instead of behind the ball because you take away their option for a short kick. And I find it really weird that we played that way, particularly given the fact that we were so short. I thought that we were going to see a more progressive game plan. I thought that we'd really see a bit more handball. I thought we'd really attack the game and play to our strengths. And we didn't. And I'm not even questioning it anymore because I don't know what I expected. I kind of downplayed the last couple of wins. I got excited about the Collingwood one because that's just more of a personal rivalry and a club rivalry. But I said we'd learn a lot about Teague this game and a lot about the Carlton Football Club, and I think we did. And I think what we've learned is that we're either so blinded by arrogance that we're doing the right thing, or we're just so blinded by the fact that we live in some kind of scriptural world. And it got me thinking, why are we shit? Why are we shit? And I'm reading a book at the minute, and I read this a long time ago. But it's Alex Ferguson's formula for leadership and culture. And he said that you start with a foundation, number one. Two, you dare to rebuild the things that are important. What he means by that is you don't think anyone's replaceable. You dare to make them bold decisions. You dare to, roll the dice, if you will. Three was set high standards and you hold everyone to them, but you reward them in the same measure that you chastise people. And I think this is a really key one because I got thinking about support, and I hear a lot of people say, oh, if you support Carlton, you've got to back them all the time. If you don't, fuck off. And I think, who's the biggest support in my life? And I would probably say it's my pop, who's no longer with us. And he was harsh to me. He was a dickhead at times. And I look back and there's many times when I was a teenager, particularly, that I fucking hated him. But I look back and realise that now I'm doing the same thing with my kids. It's because I wanted success, so therefore I wanted them to succeed and maximise their talent. So I was never going to let them fall below the expectations of what they can do themselves. And I've always been one of them people that if you give me 110%, that's what you're capable of. If you can give 100%, your output is what you're capable of. And it's always making them give you 110%, not 100, because you have to have something to strive for. Number four he's got is never cede control. So never give up control. Never let people interfere with what you want to do. Stick to your vision. Five is match the message to the moment. And I thought this was really important because when you read this book, he talks about you create situations. So to use a Carlton example, the message would have been about Surge last week. This week it would have been about beating 18th and keeping in the finals hunt. And it's about developing that message, that the message changes for the game. He also goes into about this, that it's about the tactics. And again, you don't give them space in the middle because that's what they like to do. They play corridor football. And you've got to change and adapt yourself to the situations. Six is prepared to win. And this is a really interesting one, what Alex Ferguson talks about. And this is something that Carlton don't do. You don't talk about winning. You act like you're winning. So you show the glamour of winning. He talks about that. He showed the glamour of winning. He showed press kick clippings of Leeds in the 70s. Of the great Liverpool sides, and created that hunger and said, this is what life's like. Do you know what I mean? They're swanning about. You're mixing it up. You make people hungry for it because if you show them that they haven't got anything, it's important. Seven, he said you back your powers of observation. And I think this is really important because when you go through Ferguson, you go through any great coach, and you go through the coach that we've got, in the loosest sense of the word as well, coach, because I don't think he is. He talks about that you react to the situation, you're reactive. And he talks about, instead of being reactive, you're impactive. And I think this is really important because Everything I've ever done, I've always tried to approach a problem head on, be impacted, see it before it happens. Power of observation, you see something that's going wrong, get in there before it's too late. When you work in the fields of development and stuff, you can kind of see where someone's struggling before it becomes a problem, and it's about setting the boundaries so that never becomes a problem again. He's never stopped adapting, so when you're happy, it's moving on to the next one. Fergie had this really great thing that he said, where he said that he always used to talk to his team that when they'd won, they now moved on to next year. As soon as the title was locked away, it's now preparing for the next year, preparing for the next game. And he talks about, and this is something that I would have thought when you've got the games locked away, you prepare for the harder challenges. So things like the Carlton game today, you've got to prepare for the harder challenges. You've got St Kilda, Port Adelaide coming up. So you have an air of what they're about. And it's quite interesting because a lot of the AFL teams, particularly in the AFL, when you go through the tactics and you go through the structure and you go through the scouting reports like I do and you become a nerd, you see no one really plays expansively. When I do this for Premier League teams in soccer, I'm seeing 16, 17 different methods. In AFL, I'm seeing 2, 3 methods, and everyone does the same thing. And I look at this club and, like, I look at simple things. Like we talked about decoy runs they use in the forward line, about they hit up the hot zone and players run in patterns. Killed Wheatering. 5 of Larky's goals were from them diversion tactics that caused Wheatering to get out of position and allowing space to run into. We talked about how they move the ball through the corridor, short start kicks, and then look to run it by hand with Hall. Nearly 40 points that they scored that came from that direct mechanism. These are basic things. These are basic things. These are things that I do in a week out of love. They've got people who are paid to do this. And then not only from that, they live and sleep this. They have people who are literally watching North Melbourne all year for this game. And then the coach takes that feedback. And I don't know if anyone's ever played Football Manager or anything like that, but I'm one of these guys who reads the scouting reports that the computer generates and builds my tactic. And and this is my method in life, and this is how I think every coach should be. You look at what you want to do, you see what your opposition is going to do, and then you adapt your tactic to allow you to do what you want to do. So, for me, Teague likes to play a man behind the ball. He often floats Noons behind there from the midfield players, the wing players, defensive wing. You're floating through the middle. Or you take a backman like Zach Williams or Liam Stocker and you float him a little bit higher up the ground and you sacrifice that one and you funnel the kicks down the left-hand side, which is what they did to us very well. They really did allow us to go where they wanted to do, to play to their strength. And you do that just via tactics, and that's ever adapting in the game. You watch the really good coaches, Alistair Clarkson, you watch coaches like that, they really shift them cogs in the game. They really do. Melbourne was a great example for him, that draw of how he changes the cogs of a very weak side. And for me, I don't buy into the culture that, like when we talk about culture, I always find it baffling to me that people think it's some kind of mythical thing. You know what I mean? That, the place can be cursed. Now, I'm 35 and I stopped believing in curses and bad luck and luck. When I stopped believing in the Tooth Fairy, I found that life is actually a process-driven thing. And everything that goes right and wrong in your life can be delved back into a process. It's just how deep you want to go. Using me as a personal, let's use a personal example. As a drug addict myself, a former drug addict, I could say that was because I was adopted. I could say that's because I had no home. I could say that was because I come from a broken home. And a lot of people said that. Or it's the fact that I have dealt in processes in life that have led me to that. Do you know what I mean? And once I changed the process and the way of thinking, stopped doing drugs. And I've got a lovely family and I get to be a part of society, which is really good and really rewarding. But all I did there was change the process. You know what I mean? I haven't changed as a human being. I've changed my processes to be more empowering. And I think it doesn't matter who the chairman is and stuff like that. It's what the coach does. Because you think of businesses, your boss, a good boss, and I look at the good bosses I've had, and I want you to think about it. Usually them bosses are arseholes who are good ones. The ones that I probably didn't have a drink with. They were quite standoffish, but their processes and their expectations on my role and those people around me made the place better. When I look at the bosses that I really liked and I had a beer with, I kind of gave 90% because they were a good person. They didn't quite push me because they were happy with good. the ones that really maximised my potential, when I look back at them roles, I'm really proud of what I achieved, was because they pushed me. 100% was never enough. There was always that 10% that I could give. And me striving for that made me a better human being. And that's not what this club's got. The culture changes almost instantly when you don't set your standards on we will play finals. You set your standards on not saying, oh, we haven't lost by 40, but you set your standards on, well, we're conceding 100. We're not conceding 100 anymore. We have to win games. We have to win games. 4 points isn't enough. Okay, we won. We beat Collingwood, but Collingwood are a rabble at the moment. They didn't play particularly well. We have to improve X, Y, Z. And never giving the praise ad hoc. It's, we praise when we do the right thing, but we criticise in the equal measurement. I watch this club and I think, what does Carlton Football Club stand for? And what worries me at the moment is we kind of gone back into that buying it culture. We need this player in the off-season. We need this player in the off-season. And we look at the teams around us. Predominantly, they've built it. And we talked about building it. And then we panicked and we started just throwing money at players. And I think the fabric starts to go because you can't implement culture. Culture is a buy-in. A total buy-in. And for me, and you speak to a lot of players. I know this is true when you speak to a lot of players. It starts to an extent with the chairman, but the chairman isn't the be-all and end-all. It's more the head coach and what he says. And they look up to him. Because the others are the big bosses. You look at your work life. You don't care about the area manager. You care about your boss, your line boss. He worries about the area manager. You worry about him. Shit travels downhill. And just imagine that. Imagine being a player, if you will. Being set up in a situation where Collingwood, we won because we worked hard to alleviate the issues in our system, and Collingwood weren't good enough to exploit them. And they lost their legs in the fourth and we ran over the top of them. That doesn't happen all the time though. And North Melbourne exert very little effort. Carlton ran dead last for kicks from D50 to goal shots. Carlton ran dead last in defensive transition. We have to work hard when we turn the ball over. The opposition doesn't have to work hard to turn our ball over because we do them dink kicks, which slow the game pattern down. That is definitely a deployment by the coach. It's okay saying the players didn't play well. They didn't. But the situation is poor. Tactically, structurally, we're poor. And I can't see it getting any better under this. And I want Teague to work. I really do, because I've been here too long now. I buy into a bit of romance, but it ain't going to work. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It ain't going to work. Sometimes, do you know what I mean? People are bad for you in life, in general. Do you know what I mean? You have a friend that constantly dicks you. If you get dicked again, that's your fault. After the 5th time, after the 6th and 7th time, you've got to sometimes front up and change what's not working. And it's not. And it's okay living in the past and saying we've changed coaches before and stuff. But we've also kept the same coaches and we haven't got successful as well. So adaptation is the most important thing. Success is driven by process, and process requires change. This isn't good enough. This club stands for so much more. The great names that have walked through this club stand for so much more. And when you talk to some of the old players, and I'm fortunate enough to be in that position, when they're nearly in tears on the phone about what they're seeing, says a lot. This club is a great club. Great club. Such a proud club. Last week was enjoyable because it was 2 proud clubs going head on. And now we feel a little bit shit, don't we? Because we've lost to North. But we didn't lose to North. We deliberately lose to North. Because we were set up to fail from the minute that ball was bounced. And you can say Harry was a big out. Yeah, he probably was. But when you're kicking longer than you've ever done before, with more entries in that method than you did when Harry was there, you realise that Harry is a key cog because he can do that. But a good system wouldn't rely on Harry being the best contested mark in the competition. A good system would complement that. And know that that's your backup plan. Maybe try and isolate him a little bit. And we don't do that. It's a bit of pill to swallow, isn't it? And I hate fucking losing, I tell you. I really do. But all in all, that performance is as abject as you'll ever see. And it's poor. And the standards of this club need to be higher. And it's okay if you get angry and you're satisfied with that. We're never going to win a flag under David Teague. You can bookmark this. We're never playing finals under David Teague. Bookmark that. We had talk of finals. We're lucky that the teams in and around us are fucking shit. It's the only reason we're there. We're not there by goodness. Go back through 2020 stats, if you will. They're not good. They're not good. When you look at how the games and swings and momentums happened, this is this year. It was just a short quarter and we could mask some of the hurt. It's tough to see. But this club's in a mess. Structurally, departmentally wise, it's in a complete mess. And the facts are that people want to go out there and buy more players and stuff, but how many players do you want to buy until you realise that the system you're bringing them in is shit? You can buy Cristiano Ronaldo now to play for your five-a-side team. If the other four of you are obese and can't run, it doesn't really matter. He's going to have to work hard and you're going to be relying on one person. And already our team relies on one or two or three individuals to really up their game to mask the tactical deficiencies. North Melbourne, their system works well, so they can hide deficiencies in a structure that is a team game. It was really poor. It was really poor. I'm really upset. But I wanted to get this out of the way because tomorrow I just want to sleep. And part of the club died today because you saw how far away we are tactically, and you don't win things without being shrewd on the field. And we are the furthest from shrewd I've ever seen. It's very poor. Much love, everyone. Hey, stick together. It's a pleasure being a voice for some of you and being listened to. And I want you to know that I appreciate every one of you. Haters, lovers, man, woman, child. If you watch me, I love you to pieces. See you next week. Have a great weekend. I'm out.